S. Pickens Jackson.
Hey, what do you say we sing a driving song?
There's not going to be any singing around here. Just
real sports.
On the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly.
Oh, this is going to be sweet.
And it's all right here, right now on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
th day of January 2024. Welcome in. It is the Afternoon Drive. It is Wednesday, but it is only Wednesday moving forward. Hope everybody's doing well, and the snow and ice, at least in central Mississippi, has, for the most part, dissipated. I know North Mississippi is getting popped. If you're up there, just hang in there. Hopefully this will be over sooner rather than later. We're brought to you by Ameristar Casino. Get out and play today at Ameristar Casino. We'll visit with Keith Hardy on Friday, kicking it with Keith, courtesy of Ameristar. And, of course, you can go play the NFL playoffs, NFL futures like the Super Bowl, college football futures, believe it or not, college basketball, NBA, and more. You can text us 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. Make your house a home today with Cowboy Maloney's. 13 locations around the state of Mississippi. Online at cowboymaloney's.com. And you can give us a call, 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. EC Malone is their website, 8337-MALONE. And, of course, if you had any issues with your roof on your home, contact Malone today, 8337-MALONE or ecmalone.com. And we're on X at Jake Wim. Brought to you by Clinton Body Shop. 2 locations to serve you in Clinton and Richland. OEM factory certified. All the manufacturers trust at Clinton Body Shop. I'm on the Mississippi Gulf Coast today and tomorrow. That's what we will be broadcasting from the beautiful IP Casino and Resort for the MHSAA and the MAAA Athletic Administrators Association's meetings, spring meetings. Even though it doesn't feel like spring, it's the kickoff of the calendar year for the MHSAA, the MAC, and the MAAA. And, of course, I want to say thanks to our friends at CDFL, architects and engineers, as they have really helped tee us up here. And, of course, CDFL will be doing a lot with what we're doing here in the coming months and hopefully coming years. But CDFL, we appreciate them teeing us up here as well. We'll have several guests on today. Chris Landry will join us 4 to 4:30. We'll talk NFL playoffs. We'll get his thoughts on what's going on over in Alabama. Steve Robertson at 5:15. He will join us as well, talking Mississippi State football, a little basketball, and we may peek in on some baseball. Beav, I assume that the Fista made it, and I know when we left the other day, our vehicles were frozen solid, but the Fista, I guess, is okay now.
Yeah, she lived.
That's good. That is a good thing. All right, let's get started. We got a lot to get into and catch up on. We were off, obviously, yesterday because the roads were frozen solid, and Beaver and I made an executive decision that we were not going to risk it. We love you guys, but we've said we would live to fight another day. A lot of guys in the transfer portal still. Texas State quarterback T.J. Finley has hit the transfer portal again. The former LSU Auburn signal caller threw for 3,439 yards and 24 touchdowns for this past season. Also, let's see here. Former Oregon quarterback Robbie Ashford has officially committed to South Carolina. So, and I went over the weekend because we had some time, especially yesterday, really churning through a ton of numbers on quarterbacks and recruiting and coaching and all that stuff for the 2024 Hourglass, because there's just so much to do to punch a lot of that stuff out. I said, let's just take a look at it and see what we got. And, Robbie Ashford looks like he will be probably the starting quarterback for South Carolina, believe it or not, because if you go kind of look at what's going on, Spencer Rattler, of course, is on his way to, maybe he's going to get a shot maybe at the National Football League, maybe a free agent contract. We'll see where he's at. But you start looking at South Carolina, they don't have a whole lot of guys coming back. Lenora Sellers is a freshman quarterback that will compete for that job. But Robbie Ashford is likely going to be, let's see here, either one of those will work. But looks like Robbie Ashford will be the guy, possibly the starter there, for South Carolina. Also, if you've been following what's going on over in Alabama, the University of Alabama, and what their new head coach Kalen DeBoer is doing. Buffalo coach Maurice Linguist is leaving to become an assistant at Alabama. First reported by Chris Lowe. In the past 2 days, Alabama has hired the youngest head coaches in the Sun Belt, and Kane Womack from South Alabama, and then, of course, the MAC Linguist to be assistant. So DeBoer putting together what looks to be a pretty solid staff to start his tenure there at Alabama. Also like what our friend Josh Pate had to say over the last 24 hours. Pate was talking about, let me pull back over here as my laptop decided to, there we go. Pate was talking about Alabama fans and Bama fans at 30 and under, and I would say more like 35 and under, calling them, and this is just not really taking a shot, but I thought it was pretty funny, trust fund fans, basically saying, hey, You've had a lot of good stuff over the last 17 years. Most of your childhood, most of your adulthood, it's been fantastic. Nick Saban has delivered, but now we'll see if what that's going to look like and how well they handle college football. Preseason D1 baseball rankings are out. Wake Forest is number 1 in preseason baseball, college baseball. Florida at number 2, Arkansas number 3. You've also got LSU at number 4. So Florida, Arkansas, LSU out of the SEC. TCU at number 5. Vanderbilt checks in at number 6. The Whistler and Vandy at 6. Also Oregon State at 7. Texas A&M 8. Tennessee 9. And Clemson 10. And I do not see a Mississippi State or Ole Miss sighting in the at least in the D1 baseball.com rankings. South Carolina checks in at 25. Also, you've got Alabama checking in at 19. Texas at 16. I'll bring up Texas. Obviously, they're not playing in the SEC this year. This is their last year of Big 12 baseball, but they'll be playing in the SEC next year. Also, I'll get Beef's thoughts on this a little later on. Shiloh and Shedeur Sanders. Let me get it right now. Beef, did you see this out there on Shiloh and Shedeur?
No.
Okay. I'm going to send you a picture of this. I promise you, when I was cruising Twitter, I thought it was just them going hunting. You know, because the Sanders like to shoot guns and get out, and they're outdoorsmen, like to hunt. Well, Shiloh and Shedeur Sanders skipped Colorado's first team meeting. Instead, they were in Paris for the Fashion Week modeling Louis Vuitton's menswear collection. So I will send you these photos during the break so you can have a good visualization of this. Also, I don't know if you guys saw it or not. And, you know, we bang on reporters a lot when they need to be, you know, kind of banged on and ragged on. But a female reporter asked Todd Bowles of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers how the Bucs are preparing for the weather in Detroit this weekend. It was fascinating, this exchange, and the fact that he talked about, well, here's the thing. They play in a dome. They've played in a dome forever, for 50 years. So I think we're going to be okay with the dome atmosphere. Also, talking about the transfer portal, Alabama transfer cornerback Des Ricks has committed to Texas A&M. Ricks is a former 5-star recruit from the class of 2023, and I want to get into this later on about some of the exploratory work on recruiting and, you know, how we quantify rankings. You know, and I want to bring up Alabama and Georgia because I found some fascinating stuff that nobody's really talking about as it pertains to rosters, Alabama and Georgia particularly. And it might give a little more insight to why Nick Saban said at 72, hey, I'm done. I'm tired. I'm over it. And I'm going to let somebody else deal with this. I've done enough. I've won more championships than anybody else, and I'm out of here. But Alabama having, again, some defections, so to speak, in the transfer portal. 2024 lines are already out. FDS Sportsbook, believe it or not, courtesy of Brett McMurphy for Week 1 games and some other games as well. Florida State right now is a 12.5-point favorite. If you want to play, like all you hardcore gamers can play this now in Dublin, they're a 12.5-point favorite. Texas A&M is a 1.5-point favorite over Notre Dame, and that's a Week 1 or Week 2 matchup for college football. Georgia is a 12.5-point favorite over Clemson and Atlanta, and I think that's fair even today. Texas is a 1.5-point favorite at Michigan. I think that is fair. LSU -6 against Vegas. Yes, yeah, that'll be fine. LSU -6 versus USC in Vegas. Georgia, a 2.5-point favorite at Bama. That'll be Kalen DeBoer's first SEC ball game. Michigan, 11.5-point favorite at Washington. Oregon is a 1.5 favorite against Ohio State. Georgia, a 3.5-point favorite right now on the road at Ole Miss. LSU, a 1.5-point favorite against Bama. Ohio State, a 6-point favorite against Michigan. And then Colorado is a 7.5-point favorite over North Dakota State, and that's their first ball game of the year. And again, you want to kind of circle that and keep an eye on that because North Dakota State is going to have a shot to win that ball game. Ole Miss announces wide receiver coach Derek Nix is leaving to become Auburn's new offensive coordinator. So Nix will head to the Plains to work with Hugh Freeze. Also, Jim Harbaugh has interviewed for his second job in the National Football League, and the Atlanta Falcons have put this out there like the San Diego Chargers did, says we have interviewed Michigan head coach Jim Harbaugh for a head coaching opening. So Harbaugh now with two interviews this week with the National Football League, one with the Atlanta Falcons and the other with the San Diego Chargers. And then you look at what he did as far as some of the requests for Michigan. He basically said, hey, look, I want to be the head coach at Michigan. I'd like a new contract, but I want immunity from everything that's gone on over the past year, which makes it very, very tough. I don't know that they're going to be able to offer him any kind of immunity as they move into the process. 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. And, of course, you can always text us 601-897-105 or 885-3776. That's 601-885-3776. Chris Landry coming up 4 to 4:30. Steve Robertson 5 to 5:15. We're down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for the next 2 days for the Mississippi MAAA Athletic Administrators Association meeting. And, of course, we got a lot going on as well. Brought to you today by CDFL Engineers and Architects, and we'll have other guests coming in as well. Got to take a time out. Back with
It's time to get
Back in the game.
with Jake Wimberly and the Afternoon Drive
That's entertainment.
on the station that specializes in the Mississippi sports you love.
Now we talking.
Live and local on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Wednesday edition of the program. We're brought to you by Maristar Casino and our friends at Malone Roofing Services. ECMalone.com is their website. 8337 Malone. Commercial residential roofing done right with Malone Roofing Services. We're on the Mississippi Gulf Coast next 2 days with our friends of the MHSAA and the MAC for the 2024 Athletics Administrators Association Conference, powered by Mississippi Power, also CDFL Architects and Engineers. And we'll have several people coming through over the next 2 days. We'll visit with Bobby Hall tomorrow, who is being inducted into the Mississippi Hall of Fame as well. And, of course, we'll have several other people that we'll get teed up with. 601-885-3776 is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. What's next for Alabama? Examining what goes right, wrong when it replacing legendary coaches. We will get into that courtesy of Brandon Marcello. The NCAA has denied Maryland transfer quarterback Tulia Taggart waiver for an additional year. Beebe and I were talking about this a couple weeks ago and just seeing, hey, where does he go, what happens? But for some reason, even with support from Alabama, this is Nick Saban and Alabama wrote a strong plea to the NCAA in his support, basically saying, and I'm paraphrasing, hey, look, he played just a few plays, a few snaps here, a few snaps there. He was just over the deal. Give him a shot. And I was like, nope, not happening. So they are not going to allow that. So he is off to the National Football League. Florida State has landed 5 former Alabama players via the transfer portal. Running back Roydell Williams is headed to Florida State. Also, offensive lineman Terrence Ferguson headed to Florida State. Malik Benson, wide receiver, to Florida State. Defensive back Earl Little Jr. and linebacker Sean Murphy, all headed to Florida State from Alabama. Also, former Oregon State wide receiver Silas Bolden has committed to Texas. The 5'8", 165-pound wide receiver totaled 80 catches for 1,076 yards and 4 TDs in his time with the Beavers. He'll have 1 year of eligibility. Quietly, Texas has put some really big wide receivers around their quarterback room as they come into the SEC next year. Also, Alabama. Speaking of Alabama, Alabama star defensive back Caleb Downs is going into the transfer portal. And just a few more notes here as I'm moving through the transfer portal notes. Alabama offensive tackle Caden Proctor is headed into the transfer portal. The former 5-star plus recruit started all 14 games for the Tide this past season. So there are definitely some deficiencies when it comes to what's going on at the University of Alabama. Ohio State has hired Ross York as their new athletics director. This was yesterday. Quote, to be a part of a Buckeye Nation along with its storied traditions and long history of achievements is a tremendous honor and a welcome challenge for me and our family. I can't wait to get started. Beaver, did you have any thoughts of Ross York, who tripped his way from Ole Miss to Texas A&M and now to Ohio State, being the athletics director at Ohio State?
The same as when he went to Texas A&M. I don't fully understand how he keeps getting these jobs.
I mean this when I say this. He must interview well. Like, he really must interview extremely well. It is kind of baffling that he is the athletics director at Ohio State, but congratulations to him. Also, congratulations to Brent Brennan. He is the new head football coach at Arizona, because Arizona's head football coach obviously took the job at Washington, and now Washington hires Brent Brennan as their new head football coach. Also, speaking of coaches, LSU is finalizing a deal to bring Corey Raymond back to Baton Rouge. Raymond, of course, was the architect of DBU and is headed to coach for the Tigers. So he is headed back as Brian Kelly is trying to beef up that defensive side of the football, let go the entire staff on the defensive side, and now he's, obviously scouring to put new guys around it, bringing back some of the old guard. And again, the Falcons announced that they have interviewed Jim Harbaugh for their opening in the National Football League. Dan Wetzel reports, since losing the Rose Bowl, Alabama has seen the following: Nick Saban retire, 21 players enter the transfer portal, including stars Isaiah Bond and Caleb Downs. 6 recruits from the class of 2024-25 have decommitted, and it's been a tough stretch for the Tide. And John Talty, also on this, said to sum up Alabama's day so far today, SEC Freshman of the Year star safety Caleb Downs expected into the portal. Starting left tackle Caden Proctor, 5-star, goes into the portal. 5-star Zion Grady decommits. Welcome to the SEC in 24, Kalen DeBoer. And so, looking at this, and when you start looking at talent, and again, the way that we've always done this, and I say we as in the industry, whoever likes to play with numbers and likes to play with recruiting and all this kind of stuff, used to, what you would do is you'd say, okay, look, we're gonna rank this, and in all of it, there is some legitimacy to it. You can't live on just talent. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of other factors to being successful in college football. But when you look at it, it would say, okay, let's look at a 4-year model. So, your freshman class ranked number 1 in the country. Your sophomore class was 3, 5, and 7. So you just average that up, and okay, we've got a 4-year average of whatever that is. I have always used, up until this year, a 3-year average, because the 3-year average to me seems a little more realistic, because by the time a class, then this is prior to the transfer portal being as hot as it is this year and even last year, your freshman class, the likelihood of having 25 guys go from freshman year to senior year and all 25 or even 20 being there is slim to none. It really is. So you kind of quantify it on a 3-year rolling average. Now, with the transfer portal, talking with Kelly Ford, who'll be back on with us next week. I was talking to him last night about this and talking to some other guys. How do you quantify? What's the best way to really start quantifying this? Because if you look at Alabama, for instance, they have the number 2 class this year in recruiting. Last year in recruiting, these are courtesy of On3.com, they had the number 1 class. And if you go back and look at the prior 2 years, they're going to be at 1 or 2. However, when you start factoring in the transfer portal, and let me roll over here and look at Alabama's numbers in the transfer portal over the last 2 years, and we haven't really talked a lot about this as it terms, to Alabama and even Georgia to some degree. Alabama this year, now again, not all transfer portal classes are created equal. For instance, if you go to the top, you look at Louisville, they've had 21 guys out and 23 guys in. But On3's rankings feel that the 23 that are in is good enough for the number 1 portal class this year. Even though they had 21 out, they had 23 in. Colorado, the same way, number 2 class. 17 out, move 22 in, at least on paper, those 22 guys, give them Ole Miss. 17 out, 14 in. So you kind of understand the math here. But you go down here and you start looking at Alabama, they've had 24 guys out this year and 3 in. Okay? That's 24. That's almost a full class that has gone out and only 3 in. And if you go back and you start looking at last year's numbers, that nobody really talked about it, because I don't know that we were necessarily paying attention. We see all these guys go into the transfer portal, but looking at it from a collective as far as the class is concerned, last year, let me go past 50 because they were right around that as well, is last year Alabama was 66. They had 22 out and 5 in. So you go 25 or 24 and 22, that's 46 guys and only 8 in. Alabama has a roster problem that is starting to manifest itself, in the words of Aaron Rodgers. And if you don't believe it, look no further than the national semifinal against Michigan, where they had a problem at center, and it snaps, and everybody's going, why don't they put somebody else in there? They didn't have anybody else. He was the guy. He was the one guy. So what you're starting to see is, well, Alabama doesn't have a talent problem. Auburn almost beat them. There were other games where Alabama struggled. Yeah, they won 10 games, 11 games. They were able to get that far. There are problems on that roster, and it's starting to really show, and now we're seeing that even more. No longer does Alabama have the depth that they normally had. And look, we can do this exercise with Georgia, because Georgia's got the same similar problems we're starting to see. Well, Georgia didn't have problems. They played some close ball games. Auburn, again, almost beat them this year. Some other teams played them really close. That's a depth issue. They don't have the depth in Alabama and at Georgia that they had even 3 or 4 years ago. We're brought to you by Waze Energy Drinks, online at wazeenergy.com. 4 great flavors to get your hands on this year in 2024. Rescue, Engage, Respond, and Revive. A Mississippi company, veteran-owned. Waze is here to energize their fellow Mississippians with a great drink. A portion of the proceeds support the Gary Sinise Foundation. Zero sugar, high caffeine drink down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Got to take a time out. Back with more coming up in just a bit.
Ladies and gentlemen, the time has come to go
Back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly. With the hottest sports stories of the day.
For one of those moments, it only happens
right here
On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
We're brought to you by our friends at Bailey Lumber. Go to BaileyLumber.com Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. to 4 p.m. As special selections vary by store, limited to stock on hand. Of course, get to the store and see those details. BaileyLumber.com. You can find them in Brandon, 2150 Mississippi Highway 471. Also, 4525 John Lynch Street in Jackson. Legacy Cabinets, Trex Decking Specials. Also, GAF Roofing Specials. And you got your supplies, windows, lumber, and more down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And we're here with the MHSAA this week for the 2024 Mississippi MAAA Athletic Administrators Association's kickoff meetings for the year. And, of course, thanks to CDFL Architects and Engineers, we'll visit with them today and or tomorrow about everything they're doing here in Mississippi. And we're powered by Ameristar Casino. We'll have Chris Landry coming up 4 to 4:30. Steve Robertson at 5:15. Beav, anything on your end we need to get to? We'll come back to Beaver on that. I was talking about how the transfer portal, we're starting to see how it can really affect rosters. And I don't know that we have enough sample size yet to really, really see how much is it going to button up rosters, how much is it going to pull rosters closer together, meaning forever Alabama was out in front, even Georgia out in front. And look, let's look at Georgia, for instance. I mean, Georgia, a team that has finished 1 or 2 in recruiting, 1 this year, roster over roster. Last year, Georgia had 15 guys hit the transfer portal, and they had 4 guys come back in. That's not too bad, right? That's not too bad. I mean, you can get away with that. But you look this year so far for Georgia, and I want to find them because they're way on down this list this year as well. I mean, LSU, 15 out, 6 in. They can live with that a year or two. And, we saw this with LSU several years ago, where they had a lot of guys enter the NFL draft early. And that happened 2-3 years in a row, and then you saw it catch them on the field. Georgia this year, 21 guys out, 6 in. When you start having years of 20 to 24 guys out and you're only bringing in 6, 7, 8, excuse me, your depth is where it gets you. I mean, Georgia's still going to put as good a football team as anybody in the country on the field on a Saturday. They're starting 22. Alabama, rightfully so as well. It's just, what does that depth look like in the fourth quarter? What does that depth look like in week 4, week 7, and down the road? And, I kind of carved through this, and for me, I have not and will not pick a national champion until April or May when we go to Ameristar and do our future bets, just like we did with Michigan this past year. I will tell you, at least from 10,000-foot flyover over the last few days, I have Georgia as the number 1 team in the country with a rating stamp, and again, we'll put all this out at 148.28. That's their identifying number. I have Oregon as the number 2 team right now in the country, and Oregon, what they have done, in the transfer portal, picking up the quarterback that they have picked up, their transfer portal work has done good. Their recruiting is good. 138.18. I've got Alabama at number 3 right now at 137.82, but there's some distance now that is happening between Georgia and Alabama, and it's starting to show. Even though Alabama beat them this year on the field, it is starting to show. Ohio State, we talked about them. I have them at 4. And again, I didn't think Ohio State, when you started looking at losing Kyle McCord and losing, guys to the NFL, you thought, wow, this is a roster that's going to take a step back. But you look at what they've done in the transfer portal and recruiting, they have done a lot of good work there at number 4. Texas, number 5, 129.51. So, and these are teams that, if they all played right now, Georgia, Oregon, Bama, Ohio State, and Texas, I think, you're looking at lines between any of them from -3 to -7.5. Penn State at number 6, and I can't believe I just said that. But you look at what, and I know Ole Miss ran them off the field. Penn State in their big games against Ohio State and Michigan, again, didn't show up. Penn State continues to do it the right way. They're sitting at number 6. Ole Miss right behind them at number 7. And I know Ole Miss State, but just work with me here. This is analytics driving this whole deal. For 2024, they're right there with Penn State, but Ole Miss comes in at number 7. And I think when you start looking at the numbers, Ole Miss is going to fall anywhere from 9, 8, 7, and 6, somewhere in there, 6 to 9 on most people's top 10s. Florida State at number 8, 121.67. They're again working the transfer portal. When you look at what they've done, DJ Uiagalelei is going to be the quarterback there. They have done a great job again. Mike Norvell. He understands, a lot like Lane Kiffin, how to navigate the system and how to, it's a broken system. It's not the best system, but he does. Notre Dame at number 9. There's Notre Dame, checks in at number 9. They get Riley Leonard, moves over from Duke as their quarterback. They have quietly, Marcus Freeman, done a good job in the transfer portal. And I say quietly because you take a school like Notre Dame with high academic standards that's going to be higher than most people, that's going to be right there with your Dukes, Carolinas, Vanderbilts, Stanfords of the world, Northwesterns of the world. It's a higher academic standard to get in to a Notre Dame, but they're sitting there. And Missouri at number 10. This Missouri thing is a real thing. Now, what does that look like in another season? Can they stay healthy? I think Ole Miss is, if Ole Miss and Missouri play today, I think Ole Miss is probably a 4 to 5 point favorite in the ball game. But that's my way too early top 10, just kind of looking at this, and there's a long way to go to try to piece this thing together from a sports analytics side of things. Also, again, Ross Bjork to from Texas A&M to Ohio State, and then Jim Harbaugh has interviewed with 2 teams now this week, the Atlanta Falcons and the San Diego Chargers. 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. Let me go over here to the NFL tab and look and see, when you start looking at the rest of the teams, and we'll get you the lines. Let me just go over here and do that right now, courtesy of Ameristar Casino. Get out and play. Use the Bet Builder. Go to AmeristarCasino.com/Vicksburg. Get the Bet Builder as you move forward. All right, so you got 4 ball games coming up this weekend. You got 2 on Saturday, and you got 2 on Sunday. You got the Houston Texans. Almost said Houston. You got the Houston Texans at Baltimore. Ravens 9.5 point favorite against the Texans. This is a 3:30 kick on Saturday. We'll visit with Rafael Esparza tomorrow to get his thoughts. Keith Hardy on Friday. Chris Landry coming up at 4 o'clock. 43.5 is the total for the Texans and the Ravens. And again, the Ravens looked really, really strong throughout the regular season. They've got rest. They're healthy. We'll see if they can get back on that role that they were on when they took everybody out. Packers at the 49ers. Again, 9.5 point favorite. 49ers You get a Packers team that really just did what they wanted against the Dallas Cowboys. That totals at 50.5. Then on Sunday, you've got the Detroit Lions hosting the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Lions a 6.5-point favorite, and the total's at 48.5. And then the Sunday afternoon game, 5:30 kick, you got the Chiefs at the Bills. First time, you may have seen this stat, if not, first time in Patrick Mahomes' life as an NFL quarterback that he will play a playoff game on the road. So the Chiefs head to the Bills. Bills -3, total 45.5. And if I'm going here, give me the Ravens. I think the Texans likely cover. Give me the 49ers, and I think they probably cover. Give me the Lions, but the Bucks cover, and give me the Bills. Can't believe I just said that. Yeah, give me the Bills, and they cover. That's what I think is probably going to happen, but we'll get more on that as we move along. Also, we'll be out of here today at 5:30 for Mississippi State basketball. And let me pull up over here. Pull this real quick. Mississippi State basketball out here at 5:30 for pregame. Tip at 6. You know, when you go over here to the Southeastern Conference and look at the basketball schedule for today, you got 3 games on tap today. Mississippi State at number 8 Kentucky. That game will be televised on ESPN2. We'll have it right here on the Zone 105.9 ESPN Radio. That's at 6 o'clock. You got number 22 Ole Miss taking on LSU on the road down in Baton Rouge. Excuse me. And you got Auburn, number 13, at Vanderbilt coming up tonight as well. So you got 3 games tonight on a Wednesday night. And then coming up Saturday, you got the full slate. South Carolina's at Arkansas. That's on the SEC Network. Alabama at number 6 Tennessee. Vanderbilt at Mississippi State. Texas A&M at LSU. Georgia at Kentucky. Florida at Missouri. And Ole Miss as at Auburn. We are brought to you by our friends at Ranco Transmission, 1460 Old Brandon Road in Flowood, 601-939-9184, 50-plus years foreign and domestic. Chris Landry coming up in 20 minutes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's talking about anything and everything that's Mississippi sports.
No, great afternoon.
Right here on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online worldwide on the Zone 105.9.com.
Taking you through a Wednesday, we're brought to you by Clinton Body Shop, 601-924-2159, OEM factory certified. All the manufacturers you trust at Clinton Body Shop. We'll have Chris Landry top of the hour. We'll go 4 to 4:30 talking some college football and the National Football League. We're down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast today for the MAC and the MAAA, Athletics Administrators Association's conference, courtesy of the MHSAA, and thanks to CDFL Sports Architects and Engineers for teeing us up this week, as they have done so much for the state of Mississippi. And you look around what they've done collegiately-wise, sports facilities, Auburn, Itawamba Community College, also the University of Mississippi at Ole Miss, Middle Tennessee, Jackson State, Hines Community College, Baylor University. I mean, they have been everywhere and continue to do so much, not only for colleges and universities, but for high schools and for playing surfaces and things in the college world as well. Beav, anything on your end we need to get to before I move on?
Yeah, let's get to some texts. First, Gator Matt says, rumor has it Scott Strickland is taking the A&M AD job. That's not good for Billy.
No, if Scott Strickland, that would be interesting if Scott Strickland left Florida to follow Ross Bjork, or follow in the footsteps of Ross Bjork.
Resdog says, nobody fails upward like, well, it's Bjork, but I know this is not a typo. He did it on purpose. He said Bedork.
I have heard other people say that before. And look, I can't fault the guy. I mean, obviously, like I said, he interviews well.
Miko. Nick's being hired at Auburn spells trouble for these Mississippi schools being able to keep in-state recruits. He's a great recruiter that's landed some big names in the past at Ole Miss.
He's 100% correct. I mean, 100%. I mean, and look, Hugh Freeze is no dummy. I mean, he knows the talent that's in this state. Auburn has recruited in the state for years. They'll go grab, 1, 2, 3 guys out of the state and take them over there. And that just gives Hugh Freeze and Auburn a different in this state moving forward.
Possum Neck Joe says, thank you for doing the show today. Paul Finebeam nauseates me. No, nauseates me? Good God. I just Wimberleyed the crap out of that one.
You did.
Paul Finebeam nauseates me. Yes, I said beam on purpose.
Joe, I'm glad we're here. I am glad to be back on.
Jeremy B. Jake, I finally found the source of the decline of MSU sports, especially baseball.
Oh, no.
It's these State Farm commercials with Jake Mangum saying he's a former Bulldog. Come on, always a dog.
Is that a problem? Like if a sports guy says I'm a former, because you're supposed to be once and forever for all, right?
Yeah.
It could be a problem. May want to recut that.
And Rhett Cetera. Hang on, computer went nonsense. Okay. Rhett Cetera says, does it matter that Hugh Freeze is probably the best recruiter in the state of Alabama? Are out-of-state kids going to cry War Eagle in a state without too much else? How long before the state of Alabama is home to a national champion again?
Well, Hugh Freeze could be the best recruiter in that state. And don't think that, Hugh Freeze, I know he loves Nick Saban. He spoke openly about how much him and his wife, have a good relationship with Nick Saban and Miss Terry. But I guarantee you, and I don't blame him, he's probably smiling that Nick Saban is no longer in that state as far as a football coach is concerned. How long until another champion in the state? I mean, look, things go right. Alabama could get one next year, but I still think it's going to be a few years.
And one more here from Pug. He says, the delusion in T-Town is heavy today. What are your thoughts on Bama coming back down to earth a bit? Have a wonderful day.
Thanks, Pug. Now, define coming back down to earth as you move forward here. Is it, back in the pack? Alabama, I don't think it's going to go on this run of Nick Saban championships, 3 out of the next 4, 2 out of the next 4, or 2 out of the next 3. At least I don't think that they're going to do that. But, back in the pack, it's going to be tough, for Alabama fans. I really think it is. It's going to be, you're going to have to kind of come down off a kind of a detox, a college football detox, if that's fair, for that football program. Let's see here. A lot going on in the National Football League. Alabama receives reality check after mass transfer portal exodus as rivals reveal their pain. Yeah, and see, this is kind of the big story nobody's really a lot of people aren't talking about today. That's why I was talking about it after looking at everything yesterday. The Alabama football program has been on top of the world over the last 2 decades. This kind of goes in line with Rhett's text. After an unprecedented run by Nick Saban. In his 17 years roaming the sidelines, the Tide won at least 10 games in all but one. But a new era is quickly approaching. Saban, of course, announced his retirement. While rivals reveled in the departure, Alabama supporters felt that if their hero had passed away, the university did its best to move on. Of course, Kalen DeBoer is really, really good. He'll do fine at Alabama, but the transfer portal and NIL dominate the new college football landscape, and now Alabama is on the other side. After reaping the benefits in the past, landing major prospects like Jahmyr Gibbs and Jamison Williams. And remember this, too, now. Nick Saban did a really good job working the portal early. Jahmyr Gibbs comes in from Georgia Tech, has a really good year off to the National Football League. Jamison Williams, same way, comes in, blows up. They just didn't get those guys over the last little bit. And as Marcelo reports, 23 players from Alabama and the 2 deep have entered the transfer portal or the NFL draft. So, you're talking about the 2 deep has, that's what's happened for Alabama over this year. So this is really going to hurt Alabama. Now, does that mean that's going to push them back to 6 wins or 7 wins? No. But as Bud Elliott reports, fine, one more, but I do have other stuff to do that I can't keep updating this. Guess eventually I'll run out of guys to cross off. So if you look, he went through the 2 deep. There's just not a lot. We're talking about the 2 deep. That's the first 11 and the second 11. And when you look at it on the two deep and lines through everybody, the Alabama football team you saw this year that just played against Michigan is not going to be even close to the Alabama football team that plays here in 2024. 601-885-3776. If you want to give us a text, that is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. Make your house a home today with Cowboy Maloney's. We'll have Chris Landry 4 to 4:30, Steve Robertson at 5:15. We are going to pick up some guests here at the MAAA Athletic Administrators Association Conference. We'll be here today and tomorrow. And, of course, we are brought to you by CDFL Sports Architects and Engineers, gracious enough to tee us up here today. And, of course, they're in Jackson and in Birmingham, covering the state of Mississippi and the state of Alabama. And, of course, the southern region doing a great job with sports facilities as well. A couple more notes here real quickly. We will talk about this. Mike McCarthy's got a meeting coming up with Jerry Jones, and a lot are saying it's going to be a sales pitch to keep his job. Also, Kirby Smart flexes Georgia's wealth by pulling up to Alabama decommits high school in a helicopter. And Kentucky, the state of, invites aliens to visit the state with a message beamed into space. Not sure what they're trying to do there on the Bluegrass State. And then we got several other things we want to get into as we move along. Where was that? Yeah, Guinness Book of World Records investigation after world's oldest dog is now said to be a fraud. And, of course, we'll get more into this Ross Bjork story headed to Ohio State. And I do want to get more into this Alabama story. What's next for Alabama, examining what goes right and possibly wrong in regards to following a legend. And several great examples here to get into from when you look at what happened after Florida State and Bobby Bowden. Also LSU, Les Miles, Miami Hurricanes, Butch Davis, Larry Coker era. And then also, of course, the Nebraska, Tom Osborne, Frank Solich era. And a couple of others as well, like Mac Brown at Texas. We're brought to you by Capital Orthopedic, online at capitalortho.com. That's capitalortho.com, serving you in Flowood, Madison, Clinton, Brookhaven, Hazelhurst, and Kosciuszko. Move better, live better, be better with Capital Ortho. 601-987-8200. Chris Landry coming up next.
Stable.
The number you have reached.
WRKS Pickens Jackson. From college football to the NFL to high school football. 365 days a year. Hear it all on Jackson Sports Authority. Live and local at 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com. Now let's get back to the afternoon drive with Jake Wimberly.
Hour 2 brought to you by Mississippi Legends Grill. Get out to see George and the team this week. Bingo, trivia, kids eat free tomorrow at Mississippi Legends Grill. Corner of Castlewoods Drive and Lakeland Drive. Everybody knows your name. Get the lunch special on Facebook.com/Mississippi Legends Grill. We're also brought to you by Maristar Casino. And we are down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, courtesy of the MHSAA and the MAAA at the Athletic Administrators Association Conference, kickoff conference for 2024. Chris Landry on your radio, though, right now. 4 to 4:30, LandryFootball.com, at LandryFootball on X. Chris, welcome in, sir. How are you?
Dick, doing good. How about you?
Good. I appreciate you moving around. I know Monday we had some playoff football. Yesterday we were, frozen solid here in the state of Mississippi. So back at it today. Let's start college, and, of course, we'll talk National Football League. I wanted to get your thoughts. We hadn't had a chance to really talk about it. Kalen DeBoer, Washington head football coach. He is now taking over for Nick Saban, and I've got several thoughts on this as far as the roster is concerned. But your initial thoughts when you saw DeBoer, and then now what he's doing, putting together his staff, pulling in a young coach from the Sun Belt out of South Alabama, and a young coach from Buffalo out of the MAC.
Well, I know he's a very good coach, and he's someone that is. That Greg Byrne was familiar with. Nick Saban last year had done a lot of research on particularly what Washington was doing on offense. He was trying to hire Ryan Grubb, their offensive coordinator, before he ended up hiring Tommy Rees. Ryan decided to stay at Washington, and ironically he's going to be there now and is part of the staff to replace him. But good young coach. Obviously, Kalen's been around a while. Right type of personality, I think. Time will tell. Everyone's always asked, well, who's going to replace him and how's it going to be? Look, it's a challenge. It's a challenge right now. Trying to keep that roster together is it's not going well. Everybody's coming after the players, and it'll be interesting to see. But he's a good coach. We'll see how well he does and how well it works out. You just don't know until the time comes.
Chris Landry on your radio, Wednesday edition of the program, LandryFootball.com and Landry Football on X. And, Chris, yesterday I was kind of combing through some transfer portal numbers. And, we've talked transfer portal, but we talk it at, Caleb Williams goes from Oklahoma to USC. Or, Florida State and Mike Norvell, they've done a great job in the transfer portal. But when you really look at what you're talking about, some deficiencies in the portal, this started last year, and this is unofficial numbers. I don't have it right in front of me, but Alabama last year, like 8 guys coming in, 23 going out. This year, 4 guys coming in, 21 going out. Chris, those numbers are big, big numbers. Even though Alabama finishes 1, 2 every year in recruiting, I think we started to see some of that take effect this year. You look at the national semifinal game against Michigan. I don't know that they had anybody else to replace the center that was botching the snaps, or they would have played them. You look at Auburn really being able to be competitive in some other games, and you could say the same about Georgia. We don't know yet, but it looks like, these transfer portal numbers, when you're upside down like that, it's going to make a difference.
Well, it will, and I think the big thing that has had an impact on places like Alabama in recent years, we kind of touched on it last time, was the depth. It's the fact that, it's maybe not, the frontline guys that are playing weren't leaving. It's the guys that maybe weren't getting as much playing time. Well, those guys get poached, and they go somewhere else. Now, those are guys, in some cases, you've maybe put 1-2 years into developing, and then they're gone. And then you've got a gap behind those guys. So when you've got younger guys that are not quite ready to play, and then you always – there are going to be certain guys that just don't pan out for whatever reason in your recruiting class, then, yeah, I think it has affected depth. I think the biggest thing, though, is what's different this year is the quality of guys. They're not losing backups now. They're losing starters. In fact, if you look at the starting, take the 22 type guys, just 21 of those guys off of last year's roster are gone, either through the portal or, going to the draft, graduating or applying to the draft. So they're losing not just depth, they're losing the quality starters. This is the other thing that happens when you have a coaching hire that happens at this point, where you've got a 30-day window for those guys that can transfer. Those, everybody's portal picking or been picked clean. Now, like Alabama can go get guys, but, the guys that are there are not of the quality to replace the guys that they're losing, because they're not open for, there are not enough of those guys. The only guys that are available are the guys on their roster, and if they're not keeping them, it's having an effect. And, programs like Texas, Georgia, Florida State have really cleaned up on a number of quality players off Alabama's roster.
Excuse me. And, you bring up Florida State, and, you look at what happened to Florida State, obviously, and we've gone back and forth, and this will, I guess, always kind of be a debate. Should Florida State have been in over Alabama? I think the committee probably got it right. But you look at Mike Norvell, gets signed to an extension regardless of what happens with the NCAA, a 10-year deal. They have put in more work. We saw what the transfer portal did for them last year, this past season, with some of the big play explosive receivers. Now you look with a quarterback in DJ Uiagalelei from Oregon State, formerly of Clemson, and what they're doing in the portal. You look at what Texas is doing in the portal, Oregon's doing in the portal, Ole Miss is doing in the portal, where, that's the other side of it. You've got programs with coaches that are extremely aggressive with it.
There's no question. I think it is. And the portal, we can't talk about the portal and why are they doing well? Well, it also corresponds with the collective and what you're willing to do. A&M is putting a lot of money into collective. Texas, and you mentioned a couple. Miami, has done. So, yeah, it's teams like that are being very aggressive because, if you have the resources to do it, if you can't get the elite players in recruiting, and you get guys that have been developed pretty well, bringing them in is another way to go ahead and not just fill gaps, but maybe help you. Look, if you lose guys or you make mistakes in recruiting, then you have gaps in your class. And so you got to fill in that, that 25 each year. You lose 8 or 9 guys out of that year, out of the 25. Well, you got to replace that, or else you're going to have a year where you are just really bad. So you've got to fill in, 6, 7, 8 guys, maybe in each class, if you lose that many. So I still don't think that's the way to build a program, but it is a way to supplement. Georgia doesn't do a whole lot of it, but they get some key guys. They don't lose many guys. So if you don't lose a lot of guys and you recruit well and you develop well and you don't lose them, then you only have to add a few guys here or there. But the ones that are trying to build a program and maybe have lost certain guys or for whatever reason are not able to get elite recruiting classes, they are doing it. You mentioned Ole Miss is doing that. Florida State's doing that, just two to mention. Texas has done a tremendous job in recruiting, so they're just supplementing. A&M got a new coach coming in. Look at LSU. We talked about Brian Kelly at LSU for the first 2 years. Heavy in the portal, doesn't want to really do that because she's trying to build through recruiting, but the roster left picked clean by when Ed Orgeron left, it necessitates that. So I think this is going to be kind of a regular cycle, particularly if you lose a coach. You lose a coach, in this case, which we're talking about with Alabama, it's more about, man, let's go, and the folks are literally circling now because they know there are a lot of good players and they know there's uncertainty, and they're getting a lot of those guys to say, come here, because let's call it what it is. Those guys, in large part, most kids, they go to a school because of the head coach, and now they're going for what the head coach and what the staff and what the NIL and collective can do for them. And if they can get better opportunities, they're gone. And in this case, they're looking at opportunities where they've got maybe more opportunity and more money, and that's why they're losing a lot of guys. So it is an interesting time, no question about it.
Chris, before we take our first time out, I want to ask you about Caleb Williams. From the NFL scouting side of things, we see, and we saw this somewhat with Eli Manning and some other guys as well, but Caleb Williams last year, his father came out and said, Carl Williams said, hey, look, we're not going to go play for Arizona. Then we're not going to go play for Chicago here recently. And we want a percentage of an ownership, blah, 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 down the road. A lot of demands, and you look at it as, Joe Public says, wow, that's pretty brazen. But now, obviously, he commits. He says, hey, I'm going to the NFL. I'm going to go play for whoever. How does those types of messaging resonate with front office people in the National Football League?
Not very good. And I think it's just a matter of not just that, but if you look at the history with Caleb Williams, it's a lot of me, it's a lot of I, and I think it's buyer beware. As talented as he is, he may very well go number one. I've seen a lot of guys that are of that ilk that never quite achieve up to their physical capabilities because of the fact that there's a lot of, me. Now, look, I know the Manning family very well, and I wasn't all that impressed with how they handled it, but, that wasn't really who Eli was, meaning once he got to campus, he was going to work hard. He was going to do the things the right way. When he got into the NFL, for that is what I meant to say. So, even though Archie knew that the Spanos family wasn't the best place for him, or at least in his mind, he had the chops to be able to maybe work things, and he went to, in his eyes, a better place. But it wasn't, you didn't have any problems with Eli. In fact, it's just the opposite. Once he went with the Giants, he was the ultimate team guy. I worry about this guy. I worry about a number of these guys that are just me, I. I've seen a lot of them over the years. Johnny Manziel, Kyler Murray, Jamarcus Russell, Matt Leinart. You can go on and on and on of guys that were taken very, very high that were not really good team guys or, hard workers. And I just wonder if this guy might be another one. We'll see. I don't want to jump to that yet, but it does send up a red flag for me.
Chris Landry on your radio. Make sure to find him on X at Landry Football, LandryFootball.com. We're brought to you by the MHSAA 601-924-6400. And, of course, you can learn more today about being an official for the Mississippi High School Activities Association by visiting MISSHSAA.com. Got to take a timeout. We'll come back. We'll jump off into the NFL playoffs with Chris back
2024.
Okay, we're back.
I'm ready.
It's more The Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly, where he's
Live
and local on Jackson Sports Authority, ESPN 105.9 The Zone, and online at thezone1059.com.
Taking home on a Wednesday, we are brought to you by Cowboy Maloney's, and we are brought to you by Mac Hike in Madison. Get that great Mac Hike feeling in Madison, Gluckstadt. And, of course, you can go to MacHikeMadison.com for Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, and Chevy in Madison, Gluckstadt. Chris Landry on your radio, segment number 2. Find him at LandryFootball.com. Also, you can find him on X at Landry Football. All right, Chris, Jim Harbaugh has interviewed twice now, once with the Atlanta Falcons, another time with the San Diego Chargers. And, in the quote-unquote negotiations with Michigan, paraphrasing, wants immunity from anything that has happened. Is it just a foregone conclusion Harbaugh's gone to the NFL? It's just where?
I think I would not go as strong as that. I know everybody else is. I think he's going to end up in the NFL. But, if he gets what he wants at Michigan, and I know people think it's like everything is done and it's written. It's not. It's, he's doing as much interviewing of the different teams as they're interviewing him. He finds the right situation he's comfortable with. Yes, he's gone. But if he doesn't, let's say there are only two that kind of interest him, but he's still got some issues. I don't think it's a done deal. I just think in the end, it's probably going to be that getting what he wants. But I do think the language in the Michigan deal is being discussed because he's got the leverage to do that. They may say no, and, he's in a situation where maybe he has to take less than an ideal situation in the NFL. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I think it's all part of negotiation. I think he's probably gone, but I don't think it's a definite thing. Because, I've been through enough of these coaching search stuff that sometimes you think things are a perfect match, and it just doesn't work out for whatever reason. So I would say he's gone, but I don't think it's a definite.
And with Michigan, I mean, you would think that they're doing their due diligence. I mean, be it, whatever candidate that might replace Jim Harbaugh. You would think that, from Brian Kelly to Sharon Moore, the offensive coordinator, they've already kind of done their homework on this, haven't they?
Yeah, Brian Kelly's not in the mix. Sharon Moore is going to be the guy. And so I think that's why their plan is going to be real simple. Now, that's another scenario, and one that they may not be, and if he does leave, I'm very curious to see, because again, just for people to understand, I know you do, but so that would open up a 30-day window for those players.
Yeah.
Now, it complicates it because school has started on semester school, so, but you've got a 30-day window. But that only makes Sharon Moore, who's likely going to get the job anyway, all the more likely that he's going to get it. So, I mean, if I were going to forecast who's going to get that job, if Jim leaves, I would put it as high as 95, 98% that it's going to be Sharon Moore. That's going to be the best thing for them because of the job he's done and the creating of the continuity. And that continuity is fine, but he's got to be the guy long term. And I think, isn't it ironic that the suspensions and that everything that's going to likely be the reason why he leaves Michigan is the very reason why I think all the Michigan powers that be and the fan base and all the important people that are decision makers, I mean, if those things didn't happen to Jim Harbaugh, they wouldn't have nearly as much confidence in Sharon Moore because the way he's led the team in Jim's absence has been exemplary. And I know people made fun of the crying and all that. That wasn't maybe, but that. So I think that situation is set, and the only thing would be maybe a couple of staff members might leave.
Chris, as we shift to this weekend NFL playoffs, you got 4 games. Baltimore taking on Houston, their big favorite. San Francisco is a big favorite over the Packers. And then, of course, you got the Lions, Bucks, and Chiefs, Bills. That Chiefs-Bills game should be a 4-quarter ball game. The Lions, Bucks should be pretty close. On Saturday, though, the 2 heavy hitters, the Ravens and the 49ers, any chance that they might get upset? I mean, you look at what Green Bay was able to do to Dallas. I think that shocked everybody.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were surprised, although you look at Matt LaFleur, Mike LaFleur, Mike McDaniel, all of those guys were with Dan Quinn in Atlanta. Matt LaFleur knew how to attack Dallas's defense, Dan's defense. And look, let's call it what it is. You can run the football on Dallas. They're a front-running type of team that's got to play with the lead. And Green Bay did it. Are they going to be able to do that against San Francisco? That's going to be a different challenge, a bigger challenge, no doubt. But I do think that their receivers can get open if they can protect Love well, who's played phenomenally well. Green Bay's receivers, Jordan Love, played very, very well. Defensively, they've not been all that good for much of this year. Obviously, with the lead, it was completely different last week, played well. But I do think they've probably got a better chance. I'm a little bit surprised that the line was as high as it was. I think they'll keep it closer, but I certainly think San Francisco's got the big edge. And look, I think Houston, great game last week, but that's a defense that's built on speed and playing inside against Cleveland last week. Utilizing that speed and the crowd advantage is something that's going to not be there when they play on the road in Baltimore against a very two-dimensional offense that can run and pass with equal effectiveness, and obviously a great defense and very good special teams. That's going to be difficult, but C.J. Stroud is playing well. They're playing with house money, so I think they might make this game a little bit closer than people think. But I do like the 2-1 seeds on Saturday.
And the Chiefs going to Buffalo on Sunday afternoon. The Bills a 3-point favorite if we're going by just looking at Vegas. Patrick Mahomes' first time on the road in the playoffs, which is wild to even think about. Who do you like in this game to get to the AFC Championship?
I like Kansas City because Buffalo's just banged up on defense. I think, to me, that's the biggest concern I would have. I certainly like the fact for Buffalo that they're at home. Josh Allen is playing well. I think Joe Brady's done a phenomenal job with getting the running game going. I think unless there's a ton of wind, I know we got to be on weather watch again in Buffalo this week, but it's all about the wind. The cold you can throw in. Unless there's a lot of wind, I think we're going to see both quarterbacks throw it and throw it well, and I think it should be a lot of fun. I think Kansas City is just more sound on defense and healthier on defense. Buffalo at home, so I think that neutralizes some of that. I think it should be a great one, but push comes to shove, I'm not going to be surprised either way, but I think Kansas City's better going in. And, I do think that Tampa has got a chance to have some success against Detroit moving the football. I think Detroit's defense is vulnerable, and I think Detroit wins it, but I'm wondering, and I don't think this is going to be the case, but I'm wondering emotionally. That was such a huge game last week. I know you watched it and thought that's just such a big lift for them. That's the second playoff win for that organization in 68 years. It almost is like that was their Super Bowl last week, and there's so much more for this team. This is a game they should win. I think the offense will be too much, but they're going to have to protect Jared Goff. They're going to see a heavy blitz pressure from Todd Bowles, and if you blitz Goff, it's a lot different game. So I think Detroit has to neutralize it again with the running game. So I do like Detroit, but I think Tampa has got a much better chance than I would have ever thought maybe going 2-3 weeks ago. And it's not because I think Tampa's all that good, but I do think that they can cause some problems situationally on offense and defense against the Lions.
Chris Landry, make sure to find him on X at Landry Football. Also, find him at LandryFootball.com. Chris, appreciate you as always. We'll be back to Monday next week and talk to you then.
Hey, thanks a bunch. I appreciate you switching. Thanks again. Take care.
Hey, thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. We're brought to you by Madison PTS. We'll be out there late next week as they do official ribbon cutting on their new facility, sports performance evaluations, arm care programs, strength and conditioning classes, velocity enhancement for your baseball players and athletes. Ask about cage rentals and more. 601-898-1828. Back in a
This is the home of the Chuck Oliver Show every weekday from 10 till noon on Mississippi's live and local sports authority. And where? We're back to Jake Quiverly with the afternoon drive on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by our friends at Gutter Masters, online at guttermastersllc.com. Get protected today, 601-503-7755. Get those gutters on those homes while you got time. Weather's still going to be bad. Get them on there. Go to guttermastersllc.com, 601-503-7755. And, of course, facebook.com/guttermasters. Appreciate Chris Landry jumping in. We'll have Steve Robertson at 5:15. Newell Watkins in the next segment, president and sports specialist with CDFL. Beav, anything on your end we need to get to? And we'll come back over there talking about Jim Harbaugh. If he steps away to the NFL, which it looks more and more likely, who's going to be the next head football coach at Michigan? And I do agree with Chris. Sharon Moore, Michigan offensive coordinator. I mean, you look at like, hey, you got to do an on-site interview. He did that this year. And he was 4-0 as acting head football coach. And, you know, when you're talking about for a program that was a contender for the title, you know, in the season before they obviously won it, going on the road, playing Penn State. I mean, everything that he did. I mean, 4-0 as an acting head coach. He was the guy pushing all the buttons, pulling all the levers for Michigan and did a great job doing it. I think he would be the guy. Now, obviously, Blake Corum, regardless of who's the head coach there, off to the National Football League. J.J. McCarthy, off to the National Football League. So there's a lot going on there with Michigan. I mean, I don't think that they're going to be nearly as good as they were this past year. That means they're, possibly a 10-win team. Other guys that could be in the running for a Michigan head coach, coaching job, Brian Kelly at LSU. Kelly, Chris said it's not going to be Kelly, but his name has come open and up for, a lot of this. Kelly hit the jackpot when he left, went from Notre Dame to LSU. Think of Michigan having a bigger jackpot. Michigan obviously has the resources to attract Kelly if they so indeed want to do so. $11.5 million per year is what Harbaugh was in line for. I don't know that he's going to get that. Lance Leopold, who's a guy that has been a hot name, Kansas head football coach. Leopold couldn't be any hotter than he is with his fourth season going to the Jayhawks. Formerly, I believe, of Buffalo. But a lot has happened for him in a positive manner. Jesse Minter, Michigan defensive coordinator, could be in line for that job as well. He is another guy on that staff that could be ready to go. Matt Campbell's name keeps coming up for some of these. Iowa State head coach, I don't know that he has the same luster that he had 5-6 years ago. Campbell's star has dimmed 18-20 in the last 3 seasons with the Cyclones. If you remember, at one point, he was being mentioned as a possible replacement at Ohio State and some other places as well. He was in the mix, at least by some, for the Washington job. But I don't know. I don't think that he is a guy. Other names that could be considered: Chris Kleiman, Kansas State; Mike Hart, Michigan running backs coach; Todd Monken, Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator. But I think at the end of the day, if Jim Harbaugh walks away to the NFL, leaves for the NFL, I think it's Sharon Moore's job. And I think that he's a guy that, again, the players know. Chris referenced the transfer portal window would open at Michigan, but it would be a little more difficult because they are back in school, so to speak. So it would be a little more difficult for them to players to opt out. And then, of course, all the players know Sharon Moore and know about the job that he did because they were there in the 4-game absence of Jim Harbaugh. 601-897-1059. That is the Malone Roofing caller line. When you look back at coaches, and you start asking yourself, what kind of pressure is Kalen DeBoer under? And I think we all know, it's immense pressure. But you go back to Florida State when Bobby Bowden was there. Florida State is what it is today because of Bobby Bowden. The Hall of Famer turned the Seminoles into a blue blood of sorts during his incredible 34 seasons, 2 national titles at Florida State, winningest program in the 1990s. The Seminoles also finished in the top 5 of the AP poll 14 straight years. Think about that. 14 straight years, top 5. Won 9 consecutive ACC titles. And I think when you look back at Jimbo Fisher and the run he had, there was a lot of misses. Yes, he won a national title with Jameis Winston in 2013, but nothing like what Bobby Bowden was able to do. Then the program regressed in the mid-2000s. The Seminoles lost 4 games or more in 7 of the final 9 seasons, culminating in the ouster of 2009. Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator at the time. He was elevated to head coach, led FSU to its first 10-win season in 7 years in year 1. Then he led the Noles to a national title in 23, a playoff appearance in 24. 10 seasons followed, 2015 and 16, but the bottom fell out with a 6-win record as Fisher left for Texas A&M before the bowl game in 2017. Quote, in both cases, it was losing good assistant coaches, failing to replace them with similar quality assistants, and then stubbornly refusing to make changes to the coaching staff when it became clear that they had assembled subpar groups, explains Bud Elliott, host of Cover 3 and the Knoll Cast. In both cases, the overwhelming majority of assistants who remained once both Bowden and Fisher left were not working at the same level of college football following the departures in the year. Florida State, of course, bounced back. Norvell has got the program on solid footing. You look at LSU, they've had a lot of push and pull, tug, and all that kind of stuff. Les Miles replaced NFL-bound Nick Saban way back when and immediately found success at LSU. He won 10 games or more 7 times in 9 years. This run included a national title and 2 appearances in the national championship game. The regression began in 2012 despite winning 10 games. He then fell short of double-digit win totals in 2014 and 2015. Now, if you go back to hour 1, when I was talking about the deficiencies at Alabama due to the transfer portal and everything going on there, how that could affect the program moving forward, those were years that affected LSU because of guys leaving to the NFL early. A large departure. Year in and year out, it seemed like early guys, underclassmen heading to the NFL, setting the stage for his firing in 2016, quote, and also as Glenn Gilbo, longtime LSU beat reporter for Outkick, says Les got lazy. He also got lazy. He hired the best man in his wedding, Cam Cameron, to be the offensive coordinator. The recruiting never really faltered, but it didn't evolve as offenses changed. 3 years later, Ed Orgeron led LSU to the title with Joe Burrow, a generational quarterback. So those are 2 cases, when you kind of look at what DeBoer's following with Saban. Another one to look at, you go back to the 80s and 90s, the University of Miami. Miami was flush with talent during the Butch Davis years. This is following Jimmy Johnson. And when Larry Coker took it over, the stage was set for the Hurricanes to win the title in 2001. The Hurricanes did just that in Coker's first year as head coach. Miami went undefeated and won the Rose Bowl 37-14 in a blowout over Nebraska. That group in 2001 might be the best team in college football history, winning games by an average of 32.9 points. We forget that. 17 players from that incredible team were selected in the first round of the NFL or the subsequent NFL drafts, including 6 players in 2004. Unsurprisingly, Miami lost 3 games in 2004, its first year in the ACC. Without the backbone of the incredible recruiting class, the Hurricanes still won 9 games, and the wheels of the cart started wobbling. 601-885-3776. That is the Cowboy Maloney's text line. Make your house a home today with Cowboy Maloney. 70 years in the business. Mississippi owned and operated. Largest appliance inventory in the state. We're down on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for today and tomorrow. We're here with the MHSAA and the MAAA for the Athletics Administrators Association Conference. Kickoff 2024.
And action!
We got that and a whole lot more around here. It's the Afternoon Drive with Jake Wimberly.
What's the score?
He's got that, along with the hottest sports stories of the day on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Brought to you by Sound Communications online at soundcomav.com. They've been serving the state of Mississippi since 1955. Collaborate, design, and build with Sound Communications. We'll be out of here at 5:30 for Mississippi State basketball. We're brought to you also by Ameristar Casino. We're down at the IP Casino and Resort on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for the MHSAA and the MAAA, also along with the MAC, the Mississippi Association of Coaches, for the Administrators and Coaches Association kickoff. Brought to you also in part by CDFL Sports, architects and engineers, and right now Newell Watkins, president and sports specialist, 23 years strong with CDFL, is on your radio. Newell, always good to visit with you, sir. How you doing?
Doing great. How are you?
Man, we're doing good. I appreciate you guys teeing everybody up here, being a big part of what's going on here with the Athletic Administrators Association. And, you look around kind of the meeting hall here, a lot of great vendors from obviously you guys to Elite. You got Musco Lighting. Shows the importance in the Mississippi high school athletics and sports has in the state of Mississippi, and you guys are right there as well.
Absolutely. We're really happy to be a part of it. Growing up in Mississippi, of course, I was a high school sports athlete, and the work that these coaches and administrators do is crucial to the development of these young men, and we're just happy to be a part of it and help support any way we can.
Let's talk a little bit about CDFL. What you guys have done is nothing short of amazing here in the state of Mississippi and Alabama and other places. Architects and engineers, and you look at, and we talked about this with you guys before, but just to kind of regurgitate that message is, facilities aren't what they used to be. I mean, facilities have always been nice, but you guys have taken this to a different level, not just collegiately, but you look down, smaller schools, high schools, all around the country. What you guys are doing is unbelievable.
I really appreciate that, and we definitely think the built environment has an impact on the quality of life for these students. One of the things that was a topic today was mental health for students. There's a lot of pressure that's put on these students, whether they're looking for scholarships or keeping their grades up, or nowadays looking at the NIL deals that are on the table for them. There's a lot of pressure, and so having a great place, great facility where they can go and work out and have peace of mind and really feel like they're growing in their journey as athletes it's a great thing to sort of be able to provide for them, and we're real happy to do that.
Yeah, and you look, just looking through your brochure here, and of course, looking at a lot of your work over the last several months, is you referenced the NIL and the transfer portal era, and some people, just the common fan may not think about it, and I know I didn't think about it until I started looking, is you got to catch these, and I'm sure you guys hear this from the administration side when you have these meetings before planning these facilities, is, hey, we want to catch them when they come in the door, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
absolutely.
it's great to have, and you want to have great facilities to work out in, and X number of bays and areas, but we got to catch their eye, and it's up to you guys to help them do that.
That's right, and something that we take a little pride in. We don't want to claim anything that's not ours, but we're very involved in Ole Miss baseball, and we finished their performance facility 4 or 5 years before they won a national championship, and I know that helped in their recruiting. And then Lane's done an amazing job at Ole Miss. He's just really knocking it out of the park with recruiting, and we just finished the Manning Center. It's another project we're really proud of, and it looks great. And I know those kids have to be sort of wowed as soon as they walk in. So, we're here to sort of do our part and help these programs build for the future.
Newell Watkins, president and sports specialist, 23 years running, CDFL on your radio, Wednesday edition of the program. And, not to be outdone, also Ole Miss Golf, Harrington Golf Center practice facility. I mean, when you look, you're kind of teeing it up and you're hitting in a building, hitting out on to the natural course. I mean, you guys are all over the place. Also, softball stadiums as well. We'll get to that in a bit. But just the indoor/outdoor Harrington Golf Center practice facility.
Yeah, really, really neat facility for Ole Miss. We did a few years back. Where they have, I think it's TrackMan. I'm not sure. Matthew couldn't be here today. He's actually at Air Force Academy pitching our master plan for their baseball stadium. That was one of his projects, and that's where they can go and practice hitting in bad weather. And so we're actually finished up on another one of those for Mississippi College. So we do everything: sports, golf, baseball. The diamond sports are probably our sort of spot, but then we've done football. You talked about Bama earlier. My guys down in South Alabama lost their coach to Alabama for the defensive coordinator, so I know South is going to be looking for a new head coach, and I've got a lot of confidence they'll find a great one, but we're really proud of that facility down there we did for them. So, we're sports fans and architects and designers.
Also want to make sure we get this out there, and, of course, we'll visit with you guys again tomorrow. if you've got somebody that's listening that maybe is a shot caller in a community, a town, you guys do that too. YMCA Vicksburg. I mean, you guys are working in conjunction with towns and cities to help facilitate buildings and new infrastructure for city complexes and more.
Absolutely. And we think that the sort of shifting landscape of sports, there's now, one of the things we talked about, NIL, there's now NIL money for younger athletes going into colleges, and that's going to put an emphasis on youth sports, high school sports, community sports. Sort of it all moves down the line, and something we're really interested in is helping these communities and helping the young kids in these communities sort of find their way into these programs and help sort of fund their dreams and sort of, build a career basically in athletics. And it's moving, we see in the European model, younger kids get to play semi-pro, and that's kind of what's evolving here. So we think that's going to play a bigger part going into the future.
If you got somebody that's a school administrator that maybe not be here, well, not down here in this big group, but that might be interested in facility upgrades, learning more about what CDFL does, how can they get in touch with you guys?
Our website's probably the easiest way, cdfl.com, or reach out and give us a phone call from the website. So pretty easy to get a hold to. Or we're on Twitter and Facebook, LinkedIn, all that stuff. So we're out there. Just find us and give us a shout.
Newell Watkins, President, Sports Specialist, CDFL. Newell, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much for all that you guys do. And look, we'll do it again tomorrow.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Newell Watkins on your radio, CDFL, here as we hit the top of the hour. And, of course, we'll have Steve Robertson coming up here at 5:15. We'll talk Mississippi State sports and get his thoughts on what's going on with the transfer portal with the Bulldogs. Also, talk to him a little basketball and baseball as well. 601-897-1059. If you want to be a part of the program, that is the Malone Roofing Carla line. If you missed it yesterday, real quickly, Ross Bjork is the new athletics director at Ohio State. And this is courtesy of Ohio. Let's see, this is OSU.edu. Now, I did see, I'll have to go over here and find it on Sports Illustrated. If you, let's see, somebody did a piece on Ross Bjork, and I saw the headlines come across. See if I can find this really, really quickly. And it would be probably under the NCAA football, maybe. Yeah. The many steps of Ohio State's athletics director, Ross Bjork. This is from Pat Forty. The Buckeyes boast one of the best athletic departments in the country, making this hire even more questionable. We'll jump off into some of this. But Pat Forty does a good job kind of chalking through this, as he says the Ohio State Buckeyes are hiring Ross Bjork as their athletics director effective July 1st. This is yet another indication that the United States is a remarkable country where professional disasters, great and small, seemingly can be overcome with a strong jawline and a firm handshake. Bjork is not without his merits, many of which the university documented in its release announcing his hiring on Tuesday. Texas A&M, where he's been the AD since 2019, has improved its overall academic profile for athletics. He's fundraised to build some stuff, as Forty says. He's been involved in name, image, and likeness advancements at A&M. He made a few good hires. Before that, he had some good moments as athletics director at Ole Miss. Perhaps most importantly, some university presidents, Bjork looks and talks the part like a major college football athletics director should, as if he was casting for some sort of a movie. He can deliver buzzwords and jargon with some smoothness to him and some movement. But here's the rest of the resume for the omitted Ohio State release that Ohio State didn't talk about. Bjork presided over Hugh Freeze and the scandal at Ole Miss from 2014 to 2016. The time period included major NCAA violations, Freeze's rather spectacular personal scandal that cost him his job, and organized disinformation campaign about the NCAA investigation of the rebels that led to a defamation suit, and we know the rest moving forward. After the NCAA notice of allegations was put public in May 16th, it became clear that Nutt was falsely scapegoated because Houston Nutt was in this, at least in the documents and such. Also, Bjork replaced Freeze as with one of his assistants, Matt Luke, and he also had some other hiring snafus along the way at Ole Miss. So they really lay this out. Pat Forty really lays the wood to Ross Bjork on what wasn't said before he was hired. We're brought to you by A1 Gear and Auto, your hometown vehicle specialist, 601-939-1060. A1 Gear and Auto, down in Florence. Anything front end to back, let them help you out. Hour number 3 coming up in just a bit.
WRKS Pickens Jackson, where it's
Time
to take a ride. Yes, we're back with Jake Wimberly on the afternoon drive. It's live, it's local, and it's on ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Hour 3 on the way right now, courtesy of Capital Grill in Jackson, 5050 I-55 North, Suite F. 18 TVs to get the game of your choice. Handcrafted foods, beverage specials, and more. Get a Michelob Ultra Bud Light. Please drink responsibly, courtesy of Capital Grill in Jackson. Online at capitalgrillofjackson.com. Also Facebook.com/Capital Grill of Jackson. We're down at the IP for the Athletic Administrators Association meetings, the MAAA, a part of the MHSAA and the MAC. Steve Robertson will join us coming up here in the next segment. We'll talk Mississippi State sports. We're out of here at 5:30 for Mississippi State basketball. Marcus Rogers, head football coach, Holmes County Central, standing to my left. Coach, good to see you. How are you?
Man, great to see you, Jake. I can't complain. You know, we had that weather come through the last couple of days. But other than that, man, glad to be here with some of my colleagues, some of these professional guys.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk a little bit about that. We'll talk some football too, but, you know, I think a lot of times fans forget. They see you guys on Friday, and they say, oh, well, there's Coach. Well, Coach does a lot, Coach, right? So, I mean, you attend places and events like this for continuing education, to learn more. Take us through some of that. I mean, obviously, already Will Hall was speaking earlier today. A lot of you guys rolling in here. Some guys a little late. Like I said, the weather kind of delayed some of that. But a great time here for the next 2.5 days for you guys.
Oh, yeah, no doubt, Jake. You hit it on the head. So for some of us guys, we can't just show up on Friday nights and coach or just do through the week. I'm actually the athletic director for the school district. So there's 2 junior highs, 4 elementaries, and all the sports and activities. This athletic thing has evolved to activities now. We got the beta club, the chess club, you know, all of those things, debate and cheerleading and majorettes, band, choir, that type deal. You know, so, man, it's good to be down here with everyone. Like you said, Coach Hall talked earlier. We got a chance, BSN, one of the vendors, they got a chance to talk to us about just equipment and apparel, that type of deal. And we have guys like Coach Schramming that stop by and just, you know, we're sponges. We're trying to grow in this profession and try to take this thing to the next level.
Sure. No, absolutely. And, you know, when you talk about used to, you guys, and, you know, we're talking 20 years ago, it was just football coaches. And, you know, they would have the athletic director tag, and that's not taking a shot then. But it's evolved so much, like you said. I mean, you come down here and you look, you've got, you know, fair play by Translux, you know, scoreboards, you've got field people, you've got help. You know, I was talking to the helmet distributor to my right-hand side, CDFL that does facilities. I mean, there's a lot of decisions that you have to make with budgets. And, I mean, you guys are athletics directors, much like what athletic directors have to deal with in college, just on a different scale.
You're correct on that, Jake. As well as, like, you got Mississippi Sports Medicine.
Yeah.
You got the elite physical therapy people. Everybody that's in our business that plays a part in that role of athletics and activities is here today. You know, vendors, whether it's the turf machine that paints the field by itself, it's a robot. They told me it costs $11,000. It paints the field, and you just hit a button and it does it all. No more assistant coaches doing it. That's the turf tank, you know. So they got, like you said, the helmets, and from the floor to the top of your head, they got stuff covered. Everything is covered here at this convention, this conference.
And plus, and I mean to step on you there, we're visiting with Marcus Rogers, head football coach at Holmes County Central, also athletics director for the school district in Holmes County, talking with us about this event here today. You know, talking with a lot of coaches, what they'll tell me too is, hey, look, this gives us an opportunity to not only, you know, see people you don't get a chance to see a whole lot, but also, you know, you're talking about small schools are represented here, to bigger schools, and you guys can talk about issues that maybe a 1A school that you could help, that maybe you don't have those problems, but then maybe there's some problems you have that they can help you with.
You hit that on the head, Jake. Fundraising. Myself bouncing ideas off Oxford's athletic director, trying to get more school student involvement. How can we market the games better and get just say a crowd like a Brandon and a Pearl.
Sure.
You know, that type of deal. Those are goals. Meeting with architecture people about facilities. That's the biggest deal, and that grows your program and gets it going to the next level.
Let's talk a little football. Tell us a little bit about what's coming back for Holmes County Central. I mean, you guys had a fantastic run and just have really been right there, putting guys, in the SEC, putting guys in college, doing the things that need to be done for these young men. Just a way too early look before spring practice for you guys.
Well, I'll tell you what, Jake. Anytime you return your trigger man, my quarterback threw for 28 touchdowns. Only 3 interceptions, about 2,800 yards. He ran for 900 yards and ran for another 9 touchdowns. So anytime you're returning a guy like Garrison Davis, you just give him the keys and keep the car running and let him go with it. We got skilled guys all over the field. Now we got to replace some offensive linemen that we hadn't had that problem with in years. But defensively, we're going to be stout and strong as usual. Up front offensively, like I said, offensive line-wise, we got some plug-and-play guys we're trying to get in there. We played a lot of guys, so hopefully with the development and the strength and conditioning program we got going on this spring and our football one-on-one class that we do with them as well as getting on that chalkboard gets our team back to where we were and even better. Because our goal is not to lose in the second round. Our goal is to get that gold football, and hopefully you can interview me in December.
There you go. That's right. And that's easier said than done. I tell people that all the time. It is hard to win championships. I mean, you can be really good, and it's still really hard to win them because you got to be at your best every week. And then if you have a night where, maybe you're off here or a play here or a play there, it matters. And let me ask you this, talking about Garrison Davis coming back is, you talk to a lot of coaches, they'll tell you, and sometimes people are surprised to hear this. Well, yeah, I let him. He's a coach. This kid is, regardless of kid, he's a coach on the field. We let him run the offense as long as he's not getting stupid. But to have a guy that's an upperclassman say, hey, look, if you see a play, if you see a coverage, you want to check out of a play and check into a play, that's big for a head coach.
That's a big deal. And we've been meeting since the end of November and trying to get him on the same page as myself and Malik Deer, who is my offensive coordinator, but ultimately everything's going to run through me. But just getting him on the same page and thinking like we think and what we see with the box. Okay, if they're going to condense the box, then we're going to do this. If they're going to spread the box out, then we're going to do this. And we need him thinking like us. And so far, so good, man. And that's going to afford us the opportunity to go real fast and hopefully get some guys misaligned and execute a lot better and a lot faster this season.
Before I get you out of here, what was your thoughts of Nick Saban retiring? You've sent guys to the SEC. You've got a son that plays SEC football. I mean, you've been around these guys. When you heard Nick Saban retired?
I'll tell you what, Coach been doing it a long time. When I started coaching, Coach was at LSU. My hat's off to Coach. He's been the perfect model of sustainability and consistency, and he did it his way. But it's a time now, and I know a lot of people saying the NIL deal thing. No, he adapted with every age. Whether, like he said when he did the interview with Reese Davis, whether he adapted with the fast offenses and not so big linebackers and big D linemen like he used to have, he adapted well with the NIL deal too, because he never had any issues with that. I just think, like he said in that interview, some nights he would get tired and he couldn't get the same energy, and he's one of those guys that want to keep bringing energy, whether he's going to sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, waking back up at 5. He said he couldn't continue to do that. So my hat's off to Coach Saban. He did a great job, and like I said, he's the perfect mark of consistency and sustainability in our game.
Yeah, I mean, to replace a guy like that, I don't know that Kalen DeBoer will ever replace him. I don't know that anybody will, but you look at what he did for college football, and, again, really, you look at Steve Spurrier did it in the SEC, then Urban Meyer, and then, of course, Nick Saban really took it to a different level. I don't know that the Southeastern Conference is where it is today without him.
No, you're right. You're right about that, Jake. Like you said, Spurrier and them, they would do it in spurts, but he had dynasties. They kind of say it's John Woodnish, know. And we didn't think that would ever happen again. We thought they couldn't replace Burr Bryant, but I see they came with Nick Saban. So I don't know if it's going to be able to be copied, But I tell you what, I'm just happy I was here to witness it, able to meet the man, and was able to go to some clinics and learn some things from him, you know. So, like I said, salute to Nick Saban and his family. And he's going away on his own, and he's still healthy. So, you know, that's always good.
No doubt about it.
Peace of mind is everything.
Marcus Rogers, head football coach, Holmes County Central, also athletics director for Holmes County as well. Coach, I appreciate your time as always. It's great to visit with you as always.
Thank you, Jake, and I appreciate you, man.
Absolutely. Got to take a time out. We come back. Steve Robertson will join us. We are brought to you by Ashley Howie, Cry Lake Realtor, 769-226-3782, Facebook.com/Ashley Howie Realtor if you're looking to buy, sell, or relocate. Back with Steve Robertson in just a
pads.
Turning to sports. With Jake Wimberly, afternoon drive.
One of the last pure pleasures I have left in my life.
Yeah, maybe you ought to get a life first, okay? On ESPN 105.9 The Zone and online at thezone1059.com.
Taking you home on a Wednesday. We're brought to you by Williams-Newman Williams. Car wreck, truck accident, nursing home neglect. Online at WNWlegal.com. We're also brought to you by Ameristar Casino. Get out and play. And, of course, want to say thanks to the MHSAA. We'll be off after Steve Robertson, who is next for Mississippi State basketball. Pregame and then tip at 6. Steve, welcome in. How are you, sir?
Well, I'm getting a little cabin fever, you know. I'm ready for all this to be done. Of course, it'll be done soon. But you know, we boys in the South, we're not really built for this, you know. So,
I agree 100%.
It takes a little while, but I'm ready to get it going. So.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%, Steve. We're not built for this. It's get out, move, and luckily, you know, hopefully you guys will be out of that pretty quickly. We had just a little bit of that down here in central Mississippi. All right, let's talk a little football, and then we'll get some basketball. Let's update on some of the transfer portal action for Mississippi State. You know, a lot of the attention has been made, you know, to some of the bigger programs, Florida State and some others, Oregon, Texas, and the transfer portal, even Ole Miss in this state. But when you look at what Jeff Lebby has done now, 15 transfers, you know, some guys that look like can help change this program pretty quickly, you know, from wide receivers to linebackers, defensive linemen. Let's talk about some of these. Jacoby Jackson, offensive tackle from Texas Tech, Wilkie Denaud from defensive lineman from Auburn. Jeff Lebby and his staff have kind of run the gauntlet as far as positional need in the transfer portal looks like.
Yeah, I feel a whole lot better about the offensive side. I think you got some real playmakers on offense. On the defensive side, you know, for the most part, it's just kind of depth pieces, you know, and you need some depth, but I don't know that State's really gotten a lot of difference makers. I'm excited about Stone, you know, but you know, Stone's 2 years into this thing, and I think that's the guy that I really enjoy wearing a uniform, obviously, because he grew up a Bulldog. But, you know, State still needs an edge rusher, probably needs, you know, another defensive back or two. But, you know, I think at this point the portal is pretty much depleted, which makes this whole scenario with Alabama so interesting with almost 30 guys in the portal and then a bunch of guys going pro, and you got to go out here and build a roster on what's left in the portal. That makes it a little interesting. But State's still got a couple spots to fill, and they may just wait and do it in April once the portal window opens at the end of the spring semester.
Steve Robertson, genespage.com, Scout Steve R on X. Get the podcast, find him on social media platforms like Facebook and more. Yeah, Steve, I was talking to Chris Landry about this last hour with Landry Football, and I was looking through some numbers yesterday, kind of frozen in at the house, and transfer portal specific. And, you know, you look at Alabama, what is your take on this? Is, you know, we quantify and have forever, you know, 4-year recruiting rankings, 3-year recruiting rankings, and that's, you know, based on obviously rankings from 247 and others. And but then say, okay, well, the rosters look like, you know, A, B, and C. But this one's really strong, this one's mediocre, this one's not. But when you look at Alabama and to some degree Georgia, some of the numbers that are out there, I mean, 20, you know, unofficially 20 to 25 players this year for Alabama out, 4 or 5 in. You reference the guys going to the National Football League. Last year, 18 to 21 out, 7 or 8 in. I think at some point you're going to see this take effect of not only Alabama but other teams. And I don't know that we can officially say this, but is the transfer portal going to close that gap between not necessarily the have and the have-nots, but from the mediocre to the really good teams?
Well, it depends on how long they're going to let NIL compensation be tied to all this. You know, I mean, that's not within the spirit of the rule, but nobody's abiding by that rule, right? I mean, you know, and so I think until they get a national policy in place, and we just saw Florida State get put on probation for 2 years for some NIL issues, and is that just is that a warning shot, or is that how we're going to do things? Because if you look at those sanctions, people are like, oh, it's a slap on the wrist. No, it wasn't. You look at that compared to the crime itself, and look at what they hit them with. That's not insignificant at all. I mean, even what the collective gets disassociated for a year. I mean, come on now. I mean, that's in this day and time that we're in now. Things are changing, and the NCAA's got to change with it. But I think when you look at the Alabama thing, I cannot begin to imagine being a brand new coach with a brand new staff, and you got to go get about half of your roster with the depleted transfer portal, and you never know what's going to be in there come April, and you're having some of your recent commitments that have decommitted. It's going to be a trial by fire in year one for Kalen DeVore, and I think they come back to the pack rather considerably here in the years ahead.
Steve, let's shift gears to basketball real quickly. Mississippi State will tip here in less than about 40 minutes. Lexington, Kentucky, taking on the Kentucky Wildcats. A place where Lexington's very tough to play. Mississippi State has played there a lot. Your thoughts of this basketball team? Getting a win against Tennessee last week, dropping a game, an 8-point game to Alabama in Starkville. Now on the road at Kentucky before coming home to take on Vanderbilt.
Well, not to mention, then Kentucky drops a tough game at A&M. I think with the State win over Tennessee, and then, of course, playing as well as they have, and Alabama currently leads the Southeastern Conference at a 4-0 record, I think State is comparable to most of their contemporaries. And I think on any given night, State could beat anybody in this conference. Can they beat Kentucky? They can. I'm not expecting it. If it ends up being a 5-on-5 game, then I think State has a chance to go out there and can play some perimeter defense. If it turns into an 8-on-5 game, and the other three I'm talking about, which is traditionally the case in Rupp Arena, it's going to be a long night. But Chris Jans always has a great defensive game plan, and I think State has the personnel to execute that. It's got to make some shots, and that's kind of what happened against Alabama. It's like, State would get a stop, and you just couldn't convert on the other end. But I still think this is absolutely an NCAA tournament team. And I think the schedule kind of eases up a little bit after this ball game tonight. But State's going to have to bring their best effort. Got to bring a Tennessee caliber effort in a very hostile environment. Probably 18,000, 19,000 people there tonight. Arguably one of the best home court advantages in all of college sports.
Steve, I got just a few minutes here. Mississippi State baseball, we're 1 month away. Air Force comes in on a 3-game set, February 16th, 17th, and 18th. Any baseball news to throw out there?
Yeah, baseball, I expect them to be better. How much better is going to depend on, Justin Parker. Justin Parker, you talk to the pitchers, you talk to everybody affiliated, it said he has really changed the mindset, about movement. There's some exercises and things that he's done to make them more athletic on the mound. And this fall, the guys are really good. There's always some up and down, right? But I think this is going to be a tournament team. Are they a hosting team? I don't know that I'm willing to go that far. I think they're a solid number 2 on the road right now. That's obviously a step in the right direction. But, this is a program that's very proud. You got to win here. You can't stay here, and it's, you go back and look historically, Mississippi State, you haven't had to deal with coaching changes very often. It's because of the fact you've had Ron Polk and you had Paul Gregory and Duty Noble, and those guys were there, for decades, and so it's a difficult circumstance. But I think Lamonis and the staff have done a great job kind of retooling the roster. They're going to have one of the best offenses in the country, and they'll go as far as this pitching can take them. But I'll tell you, the thing that jumped out to me in the fall is how much better they were defensively. They're a ton better on that left side with Logan Kohler coming in from Memphis and David Mershon and Dylan Cup over there both kind of trading some reps. But this is a team, when you get a ground ball to the left-hand side, you're not going to have to hold your breath anymore. These guys can make the play.
Steve Robertson, find him at genespage.com, 247sports.com affiliate. Also, Scout Steve R on X. Get the podcast and more. Steve, hang in there. Don't let the cabin fever get to you. You'll be out before you know it.
I'm just writing the book, right?
There you go. Go ahead and knock that one out, Steve, and get to another one.
Yeah. We'll see you, buddy.
Appreciate it, Steve. Steve Robertson, brought to you by friends at Ameristar Casino. Get out and play today, and that is going to do it for us today. As we appreciate Chris Landry. We also prevent our other guests as well. Appreciate the group here at CDFL Sports as well. Remember, ketchup is king, bacon's a delicacy, aloha means goodbye. Mississippi State basketball coming up next. We'll see you tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Good night.